A giant bronze bull sits atop a roaring fire, glowing orange from the heat. Inside its hollow metal belly, a man is trapped, and his screams pierce the air. Yet to the crowd gathered in horror, those screams sound like the bellowing of an angry bull. Flames dance under the bronze beast, turning it into a deadly oven. The smell of scorching flesh mixes with thick, sweet incense smoke that billows from the bull's nostrils. This scene is not a nightmare or a myth. It's a real execution in ancient Sicily. And the wretched man burning alive inside that bull is none other than its creator, Phalaris, one of history's cruelest tyrants. Today, we're exploring the dark and chilling tale of Phalaris the Cruel, the tyrant of Acragas who gained infamy for a torture device so ghastly that it became his own downfall. This story isn't just a gruesome history lesson. It's a powerful cautionary tale about the abuse of power and the fate that can befall even the mightiest oppressors. How did a ruler known for his brutality end up suffering the exact horror he inflicted on others? And what can we learn from this terrifying chapter of the past? Stay with us as we delve into the rise of Phalaris, the invention of the Brazen Bull, and the dramatic, ironic justice that finally caught up with him. Phalaris didn't start as a monster, at least not openly. Around 570 BC, he rose to power in the Greek city of Acragas, modern Agrigento in Sicily. Originally entrusted with building a grand temple, Phalaris used that position to amass influence and seize control of the city. Under his rule, Acragas prospered on the surface. He built sturdy walls, commissioned aqueducts, and adorned the city with temples and fine buildings. He even expanded his territory through war, conquering neighboring towns with cunning strategy and merciless force. To many, he appeared as a strong, effective ruler, bringing wealth and security. But behind the public works and military victories lurked a tyrant of legendary cruelty. Phalaris's name soon became synonymous with horror. He showed no mercy to those who opposed or displeased him. Prisoners, rivals, and innocents alike lived in dread of the tyrant's wrath. Ancient tales claim his brutality knew no bounds. It was whispered that he even practiced cannibalism, allegedly devouring newborn babies to prove how absolute his power was. Whether or not that gruesome rumor was true, it captures how Phalaris was viewed by his own people, as a man with a monstrous appetite for pain and suffering. The citizens of Acragas walked in fear, knowing that under Phalaris's reign, a fate worse than death could await anyone who crossed him. And indeed, Phalaris was about to unveil a new method of punishment that would cement his reputation as one of history's most sadistic figures. He craved a way to instill terror so extreme that no one would dare challenge him, a punishment that would make even the bravest soul shudder. Thus, the stage was set for the creation of his most infamous instrument of torture, the Brazen Bull. Enter Perillos of Athens, a clever bronze smith with a wicked imagination. Hearing of Phalaris's bloody reign, Perillos devised a contraption he believed would impress the tyrant and secure the craftsman a rich reward. He forged a life-size bull entirely out of bronze, polished to a gleaming shine. But this was no mere statue. This bull was hollow, with a hatch on its side just large enough to shove a human inside. Perillos presented his invention to Phalaris with ghoulish enthusiasm. He explained that once a person was locked inside the bronze bull, a fire could be lit underneath it, turning the sculpture into a giant oven. The victim trapped within would slowly roast alive in searing agony. Perillos had built a twisted feature into the bull's design, a system of pipes connected to its nostrils. These pipes, he boasted, would transform a victim's screams into something eerily melodic. As the person inside shrieked in pain, their cries would be amplified and distorted, echoing out of the bull's mouth as the bellowing of an enraged animal. To anyone listening, it would sound as if the bronze bull itself had come to life, roaring with delight at the suffering within. Perilos bragged that this gruesome instrument would turn execution into a spectacle. The screams of the dying transformed into a horrifying kind of music for Phalaris's amusement. He even suggested burning aromatic herbs and incense with the fire so that sweet-smelling smoke would puff from the bull's nose, masking the stench of burning flesh with perfumed clouds. This, he promised, was the ultimate weapon of fear that would make Phalaris's enemies tremble and entertain him at the same time. Phalaris listened to the craftsman's monstrous proposal. Perhaps for a moment even he was taken aback by the sheer cruelty of the invention. Here was a device designed not just to kill, but to prolong and disguise suffering as art. A slow smile crept across the tyrant's face. He told Perilos that the idea was ingenious, but such a contraption needed to be tested to prove its effectiveness. Casually, Phalaris suggested a demonstration. Why not have Perilos himself climb inside the bull and show how well those pipes transform screams into bellows? Blinded by pride and the prospect of Phalaris's favor, Perilos agreed. He clambered up and squeezed himself through the door into the bull's hollow belly, likely confident that this test would secure his reward. The moment Perilos was inside, Phalaris swung the hatch shut and locked it tight. Without hesitation, he ordered his men to light a fire beneath the bronze bull. Flames eagerly licked at the bull's metal belly, heating it rapidly. Inside, Perilos must have felt the bronze grow warm, then hot, then blistering. Realizing the trap he'd fallen into, he began to scream, a panicked, desperate wail that soon turned into unimaginable agony as his skin scorched against the metal. Sure enough, a low, animalistic roar issued from the bull's mouth. The pipes worked perfectly. Perilos' shrieks were being transformed into the chilling sound of a bellowing bull. Guards and onlookers stared in morbid awe. The tyrant listened, intent and expressionless, as the first horrific symphony of the Brazen Bull rang out. Phalaris wanted to make sure the sound was just right, and that the inventor fully tasted the horror he had conceived. Only when Perilos' screams were reduced to weak moans did Phalaris finally signal his men to quench the fire. He had no intention of giving the merciful escape of a quick death. The bull was unlatched and opened, and the crowd gasped at the sight. Perilos' body, half-cooked and barely alive, slid out of the bull. His flesh was charred and blistered. Every breath was a ragged rattle. Perhaps in that moment, the dying man's eyes flickered toward Phalaris, silently begging for mercy or cursing his name. It made no difference to the tyrant. Phalaris was not about to let this gift from Athens go unpunished. Without a hint of remorse, Phalaris ordered his guards to carry the still-breathing Perilos to a nearby cliff. There, with cold finality, they hurled the inventor off the precipice to his death on the rocks below. Perilos' shattered body lay broken at the foot of the cliff, a grim warning to anyone who dared to think they could curry favor with Phalaris through cruelty. The Brazen Bull had claimed its first victim, the very man who built it, and Phalaris looked on, satisfied. Little did anyone know. This was only the beginning of a reign of terror, unlike anything the ancient world had ever seen. With the Brazen Bull now at his disposal, Phalaris' cruelty reached new heights. Word of the horrific new execution device spread like wildfire through Acragas. The bull became the ultimate symbol of the tyrant's power and the city's worst nightmare. In the years that followed, Phalaris is said to have condemned many victims to roast alive inside that bronze beast. Enemies, political rivals, suspected traitors, or simply those who displeased the tyrant could all find themselves facing the bull's hollow, pitiless gaze. Imagine the dread that swept through the city whenever Phalaris ordered the bull to be brought out. The massive bronze effigy would be wheeled into the public square, or set up on a hillside overlooking the town. A pile of wood was stacked beneath its belly. The chosen victim, bound in chains and sobbing, was forced up a ladder and into the bull's side door. The people of Acragas watched in horrified silence, hearts pounding with fear and dark fascination. They knew that once the fire was lit, they would witness something truly hellish. Many likely averted their eyes, while others couldn't help but stare, transfixed by morbid curiosity and the relief that it wasn't them inside that metal tomb. Phalaris turned these executions into macabre theater. At his signal, torches ignited the woodpile. At first, as the fire began to crackle, the only sounds were the muffled pleas and thudding kicks from inside the bull. But soon, as the flames intensified and the bronze heated to a searing glow, the air filled with an eerie sound. Through the bull's open mouth came a long, deep bellow, the distorted cry of the victim within, now resembling the roar of an enraged animal. Men and women in the crowd shuddered. Some clasped their hands over their ears, others stood rooted in terror. The bull seemed to come alive with each roar, puffs of thick black smoke snorting from its nostrils. In those moments, the line between man and beast, reality and nightmare, blurred in the haze of heat and smoke. Phalaris often watched these gruesome spectacles from a throne or a nearby balcony, his face lit by the dancing firelight. Where others saw tragedy and horror, he saw absolute power. The sight of his enemies and subjects reduced to literal human fuel for his bronze bull was the ultimate assertion of his dominance. Witnesses say he listened with calm satisfaction as the engineered bellows echoed across the city. Proof that his ingenious terror device was performing flawlessly. To Phalaris, those thunderous, mooing screams were the music of fear, a symphony that announced to all of Acragas, "I hold the power of life and death, and I can turn your worst pain into my spectacle." When at last the fires died and the bronze bull cooled, the aftermath was even more appalling. Upon opening the hatch, guards would peer inside to find nothing but charred remains. The victim's body by then was burnt beyond recognition, flesh blackened and crisped away, hair singed off, and bones baked white by the intense heat. According to legend, those bones would even gleam like jewels amidst the ashes, polished by the fire. Phalaris, in his perverse cruelty, collected these skeletal remnants as trophies. It's said that he had the bones of his roasted victims fashioned into bracelets and other ornaments, macabre jewelry that he would keep as a reminder of his own might. To wear the bones of a human being he had killed was, for Phalaris, a twisted point of pride. Under such terror, daily life in Acragas became a silent misery. Fear hung over the city like the pall of smoke from the bull's fires. Neighbors suspected neighbors. Any whisper of dissent or hint of disloyalty might lead to a knock on the door and a one-way trip to the bull. Parents would hush disobedient children with the frightful warning that Phalaris's bull would come for them if they misbehaved. The joyous noise of festivals and the lively chatter of marketplaces faded, replaced by an uneasy quiet. Only the occasional bellow of the bull, that horrifying sound of someone's final agony, broke the silence, sending shivers through every listener. Phalaris ruled with fear and fire, and for a time it seemed nothing could stop him. But no tyranny lasts forever. Even as Phalaris indulged in his unbridled brutality, resentment was simmering beneath the surface. Each grotesque execution, each plume of smoke from the bull's nostrils only fueled the secret anger of the people. Quietly, conspirators began to whisper of rebellion. They knew they risked a terrible end if discovered, but the urge to end Phalaris's reign of terror grew stronger with every atrocity. The tyrant had made Acragas into a living nightmare, and eventually, nightmares can provoke desperate courage. Little did Phalaris know, the screams that emanated from his bull would one day be his own. After 16 long years of Phalaris's brutal rule, the people of Acragas finally reached a breaking point. In 554 BC, a leader emerged among them, a man named Telemachus, who dared to defy the tyrant. Under Telemachus's guidance, a rebellion ignited in the city. ordinary citizens, outraged nobles, and even some of Phalaris's former guards united with a common fury. They had endured enough of the bloodshed and fear. Now, armed with whatever weapons they could find and a fierce determination, they poured into the streets to topple the monster who had tormented them for far too long. Phalaris's loyalists fought back, and Acragas descended into chaos. Battles between the rebels and the tyrant soldiers raged through the marketplaces and around the citadel. Fires sprang up, this time not set by Phalaris, but by his own people in revolt. The air was filled not with the bellow of the bull, but with the clash of swords and the shouts of angry men and women hungry for justice. Despite his cruelty, Phalaris was not all-powerful now. The collective rage of an oppressed populace was a force even he could not withstand. One by one, his supporters fell or fled. Eventually, the rebels breached Phalaris's palace, in the halls where the tyrant had once feasted and plotted. He was finally captured. His arms were bound in chains, and he was dragged out into the very public square where he had executed so many others. A roar of triumph rose from the people of Acragas as Phalaris was presented to them, beaten and a prisoner at last. Here stood the infamous ruler who had fed their friends and family to a bronze bull, now utterly at their mercy. There would be no exile, no simple sword to the heart for this tyrant. The mob demanded a punishment as extraordinary as his crimes. All eyes turned to the Brazen Bull, still standing ominously nearby as if awaiting its final victim. The decision was obvious. Phalaris would be made to suffer the same fate he had dealt to countless others. Phalaris, bruised and desperate, surely realized what was coming. For the first time, pure terror overtook the man who had inflicted terror on everyone else. Some accounts claim he fell to his knees, pleading for mercy. Perhaps he promised the rebels gold and treasure beyond measure, or swore he would live in exile if they spared him. Others say he roared in anger and denial, struggling in vain against his captors, refusing to believe that he could ever be in this position. But it was far too late. The people of Acragas had no pity left for Phalaris, not after the misery he had wrought. The rebels forced the tyrant up the side of the bull. Phalaris's eyes, once cold and cruel, were now wide with panic as the bronze door swung open. The very chamber where so many had died now yawned before him like the jaws of a great beast. With a final shove, they pushed Phalaris inside the bull. The door was slammed shut, the lock clamped tight. Phalaris the Cruel, who had locked hundreds of victims in this brazen prison, was now trapped in it himself. A tense hush fell over the crowd as they piled wood beneath the bull one last time. Many could hardly believe what they were seeing. The nightmare was about to end, and in the most poetic way imaginable. Telemachus himself, the leader of the uprising, is said to have taken up a torch and set the first flame. The kindling caught, the fire roared to life, and heat began to envelop the bronze bull. Inside, Phalaris would have felt the temperature climbing mercilessly by the second. The metal floor seared his skin. The walls that once echoed others' screams now burned his hands as he pounded and begged. Any composure he had left shattered as pain, real, blinding pain, consumed him. The crowd stood silent and watchful. Many had lost loved ones to this tyrant's cruelty, and now justice was at hand. Soon, a sound emerged from the bull, a deep, resonant bellow. It was the same awful noise that had haunted Acragas for years, but this time everyone knew who made that sound. Phalaris was screaming. The bronze pipes dutifully did their work, converting the tyrant's own cries into the tormented roar of a bull. Those gathered might have exchanged glances, a mixture of grim satisfaction and grim awe on their faces. They listened as Phalaris's agonized bellows filled the air, each one weaker than the last. The flames blazed hotter, crackling with vindictive energy, as if hungry to claim the soul of this merciless man. Inside the bull, Phalaris writhed and shrieked, enduring every ounce of the suffering he had once so arrogantly inflicted on others. This was poetic justice made real, a punishment literally forged by the tyrant's own hand. Finally, Phalaris's screams faded to whimpers, then fell silent. The only sounds now were the roar of the fire and the creak of hot metal. The crowd waited, ensuring that the deed was truly done. When the fire was extinguished and the bull cooled enough to open, they found what one would expect: the blackened, lifeless remains of the once formidable tyrant. Phalaris the Cruel was nothing more than ash and bone in the belly of his bronze bull. A cheer, tinged with relief and astonishment, rose from the people of Acragas. The nightmare was over. The dark reign of the bull had ended with its master's death. In that moment, as the smoke cleared and the sun shone down on the charred husk of the bull, the people must have felt the weight of fear finally lift from their hearts. Phalaris was gone, destroyed by the very horror he had unleashed. His downfall became a legend, a stark reminder that evil deeds can carry the seeds of one's own destruction. Thus ends the saga of Phalaris the Cruel, a tale as dark and dramatic as any in the annals of history. For generations, this story has been retold as the ultimate example of tyranny and poetic justice. Whether every detail happened exactly as legend describes, we know that Phalaris's name became synonymous with cruelty, and his fate has echoed through time as a warning. His life and death illustrate a powerful lesson. Those who rule by fear, torture, and brutality may ultimately be consumed by the very terror they wield. Phalaris turned a symbol of strength, the mighty bull, into an instrument of suffering, and in the end, that instrument became his own undoing. The Brazen Bull stands as a gruesome symbol of how absolute power can corrupt absolutely, and how karma, in the end, caught up with a tyrant in the most literal way. Thank you for watching. If this chilling story from the ancient world captured your imagination, please hit the like button to let us know you enjoyed it. And I'm curious, what do you think about Phalaris's fate? Do you believe this legendary execution really happened as described? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your take on this gruesome tale of justice. If you're new to the channel, subscribe for more fascinating and haunting tales from history. We explore everything from ancient mysteries to dark chapters like this one. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And when you're ready for another incredible true story, be sure to watch our next video. You won't want to miss the upcoming journey into another remarkable piece of history. Thank you again for watching, and until next time, remember, the past can be scarier than any fiction, and it always has lessons to teach us.